Arx Fatalis. Arx Fatalis is a game developed by Arcane Studios. It came out for Microsoft Windows in 2002 and for Xbox in the next year. It's a game played in first person view and it's set in a world where the sun went out and people of all kinds and creatures now live underground. The game was inspired by the Ultima series of games, mainly Ultima Underworld, Stygian Abyss. Arcane originally wanted the game to be Ultima Underworld 3, however EA would only accept it if certain conditions were met, conditions that Arcane didn't agree to, and so the game became a spiritual successor instead. Now to talk about the gameplay. The game is played in the first-person perspective, however it is a bit old and janky by today's standards. Funnily enough, I think Dark Messiah of Might and Magic, Arcane's second game, is jankier than Arx Fatalis. Something about its floaty feeling that didn't click too well with me, and despite being much more of an action game than an RPG dungeon crawler, it's a fine game on its own and definitely unique and worth a play.
What the fuck? What?
You play as Amchagar, a character created by you. You allocate points into 4 different stats: strength, mental, dexterity, and constitution, and into 9 different skills: stealth, technical skill, intuition, ethereal link, object knowledge, casting, close combat, projectile, and defense. Most of these are self-explanatory if you have played Western RPGs in the past. However, there are some unique ones here, like intuition, which is described as a sixth sense that helps you detect traps, secret passages, and improves your nose for a good deal. Or even Ethereal Link, which can warn you of hostile creatures nearby and inform you of your opponent's status in battle. You level up by progressing the story and completing quests. The wiki also mentions you gain XP by killing enemies as well, but I not only noticed leveling up mostly when completing quests. General gameplay flow is something akin to a dungeon crawler, like Legend of Grimrock, but you can actually move without it being on a grid. Fighting through dark musty dungeons, solving a variety of cleverly designed puzzles, as well as going into town, talking to NPCs, accepting quests, and completing them. It's a pretty interesting mix of genres. It blends dungeon crawling with immersive theme and more traditional RPGs, where you can go into town, sell your stuff, buy stuff, and talk to NPCs. Game has a lot of interesting systems that I believe are pretty organic and add to the immersion. For example, you can cook. And to cook, you simply pull out a piece of meat or fish from your inventory, place it next to a fire, and within seconds you'll have a piece of cooked food. There are more intricate recipes like bread, which involve mixing flour with water and putting the resulting dough next to a fire. You can also make pies that require more steps than bread, but you get the gist of it. This kind of philosophy also applies to the alchemy system, in which you gotta find alchemical ingredients, usually plants that you gotta grind up using a mortal and pestle, then put into empty bottles and use steels dotted around the map to make potions. Again, the system is also very organic and intuitive. Most of the plants have the same color as the thing that the created potion yields. Want some mana potions? Pick up some blue flowers, grind them up into blue powder, put it in a bottle, and distill it for a mana restoring potion. Magic is another interesting system. You actually have to collect runes and draw them when casting to cast spells. And some of these make sense. Take for example one of the most powerful spells, Elf Drain. I had a recipe, quote unquote, for magic drain. However, I didn't have one for life drain, and by simply looking at the runes, I was able to figure out what runes to use to get that spell, which was pretty neat. Despite it being pretty neat, having to draw the runes cast spells is not always practical to do in the heat of battle. Thankfully, the game lets you precast up to 3 different spells, so that you can use them in the battle without needing to draw runes on the fly. Think of it as loading a revolver. After it's loaded up, all you gotta do is shoot. Melee combat is also an option in this game, and it's serviceable. Nothing wrong with it. Pretty much you hold left click to charge, and you swing and let go to inflict damage. Swing direction is influenced by how you are moving when you start to hold left click. If you are going forward, for example, you do an overhead swing, a sideways swing if you're moving sideways, or a poke if you're moving backwards. You don't block in this game, you simply move away from enemy attacks and wait a chance to bonk them on the head. Range combat is something that most YouTubers that make reviews of the game won't recommend, stating that arrows and bows are sparse and not very available, and at some point quivers simply stop spawning. I don't share the same sentiment. I found quivers until late in the game, and even if I didn't, something that most people don't know is that you can take your quivers to a blacksmith before you completely empty them and repair them like you would any other piece of equipment, and these will recharge the quiver's arrows. It's not that intuitive thing to figure out, I know, but it's an option that is there and that you should use if you're gonna be playing as a ranged character. Arx Fatalis, or Fatal Fortress in Latin, is set on a world whose sun has failed, forcing the above ground creatures to take refuge in caves. The action in Arx Fatalis takes place in one of these large caves, where the members of various races, such as trolls, goblins, dwarves, humans, have made their home on various levels. The story of Arx isn't a complex affair, or something that would be award winning. However, it has some cool themes. Mainly, the story revolves around you, the player character, which lost his memory at the beginning of the game, trying to get his memory back and being dragged into certain situations. Later on, it becomes about preventing a cult from reincarnating a god of destruction that is certain to wreak havoc in Arx. The story in of itself is nothing spectacular, but it's there and that's its charm. It also has some eldritch elements, which I appreciate. Now, to talk about the visuals. The game has a particularly interesting visual aesthetic. Since it's all underground, you can see that the devs had to be creative to keep different areas interesting, and they succeeded. From the different kinds of caves you encounter, all brooding with atmosphere, to crypts and lava lakes, or the city of Arx itself, it's all well done and interesting. One thing I really like, and it's something I also noticed when I played Dark Messiah of Might and Magic, is how Arcane has a knack to design really brooding and oppressive atmospheres. There are some sections in Dark Messiah and here in Arx where it's straight out of an horror movie, really brooding and oppressing. Desperate. Take for example when you travel to the Cult's lair. It's all very, how can I say, culty? From oppressive atmosphere to the dudes in robes, to the bodies hanged on the walls, to rooms filled with gore, it all transmits a sense of helplessness. Or the dwarven lair, where there are foreboding sounds playing in the background while you explore a vault, almost like Fallout, filled with corpses of the dwarves, blood on the walls, indicative of a struggle, and the black beast chasing you throughout the level. Another area I really liked the vibe was the crypts. They seem to go down forever. You keep thinking, are we done? And it keeps going deeper and deeper, the tombs getting more ancient as you go down, inspiring a sense of wonder about how long ago has this been here. That paired with a really excellent and foreboding atmosphere, you don't really see much in games, really sepulchral, death. Like they know how to portray those vibes of the skeletons that have been here for a really long time, the stillness of the air, all feeling very heavy. My favorite though had to be the city of Arx. Something very comfy about it. It's all dark and people are always tired and depressed, but it's a safe area and one that doesn't really feel like it should be a part of this kind of game. Feels like something out of an immersive sim or an RPG, and this dissonance is always appreciated. City, as are many other places in this game, is also constructed with care to how human life functions. It's not uncommon to go into someone's house and find the kitchen, bed, or toilet. Several air ducts dotted around also get major props, adding to the immersion of the game. You gotta breathe down here somehow. Arx is definitely a good game, and unique enough to be worth a play. They don't make them like this anymore as you often hear, and it's true. It's an interesting combination of genres that blends well, organic. I really like the interactability with the world. The thing about how you cook, cast spells, or make potions is definitely something that adds to the feeling of being in that world. The atmosphere and sound design also sell the world very well, and the attention to detail on how things are placed in the world is also appreciated. The game is not perfect though. There are definitely some balancing issues. It definitely feels like magic is the most OP skill you can have in the game. I basically defeated the final boss with a life drain spell and just stood next to him. Him taking damage from my spell, and like in a minute he was on the floor dead without having really damaged me. It's also not uncommon to just get stuck in the game's geometry by just walking around too close to things or jumping around. I notice this happen more frequently near teleportation portals. The geometry of those seems to be a bit hit or miss. However, I still definitely feel that it's one of those games that is definitely worth a play, if not only for its uniqueness. So guys, that was Arx Fatalis, a review. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.